Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and visit our website, superstitionmountains.com. All right? So, that being said and done, let's get down to it before we get anywhere else. This story goes back into around 1887. It involves the Inocente and Francisco Valenzuela group. Gang, whatever you want to call them. They were down in Old Mexico. They'd kind of caused quite a bit of disturbances and started working their way up into Arizona and New Mexico. First noteworthy thing they do that catches the papers is they kill the superintendent at the Vulture Mine and make off with a bunch of gold bars. They do get kind of run down. Inocente Valenzuela was killed, and they recover one gold bar worth about $7,000. The rest of the gang gets away. Shortly after that, they turn to horse and cattle rustling, mainly horses. And what they do for the next year or so is they will be in Mexico. They'll steal a bunch of herd of horses from various ranches. They run them up into New Mexico. They'll sell them as they go. Then they'll settle down a little bit. Then they go around the ranches there and start stealing a bunch of horses. Then they work over into Arizona, sell some, buy some, steal some. Then they go and steal a whole bunch more, and then they move down to Mexico. So they have this little rotation where they're doing this. Finally, in late 1887, there's a very prominent rancher in Sonora, Mexico, and they steal from him, and he's just had it. He tells the Mexican government, this is it. These guys are just stealing horses from everybody. This is ridiculous. So they chase them up to the border. They get to the border. Some of actually the guys chasing them from Mexico join up with the U.S. sheriffs, and they start continuing to chase. The Valenzuela gang has this really cool thing that they're able to do, is they have the dozen to 20 members all have family members, all these little small towns all over the place. So what they do is, when they get an area, they start splitting things up, take some of the horses, hide them off, and then the gang members go to these small towns where everybody covers for them. They're kind of a little Robin Hood-like. Maybe more threatening, why people don't say nothing. While doing this, they will also, when they need supplies, go into small towns where they have no family members, go into banks and stores, rob the banks, get all of what they need out of the stores, and go back. So they continue this depredation. They get into Silver City. A couple of them are killed. But nothing really seems to deter them until they get in around Concho, and then they steal a bunch of horses. One rancher named Barth, who's well-to-do, and he goes to the sheriff, Commodore Perry Owens, who's pretty well-known, and he goes and starts complaining to him about, hey, somebody's got to do something. You got to chase these guys down. So Owens goes and he decides to track these guys down. He gets up, he starts following. They're going up towards Flagstaff with these horses. And he gets up into this area. It's called the Mexican Pocket. It's kind of southwest of Flagstaff, kind of on your way to Sedona. So he gets up there, he finds them. There's about 12 of them, but he realizes he's by himself. They've got these horses all in this one spot. And he goes, well, I think I can take them, but I need some help. So he leaves in a hurry, goes up to Flagstaff, goes to the deputy sheriffs there, but they want nothing to do with him because he was, during that time, there's a lot of bad blood between a lot of people and a lot of bad things happening because of the Tewksbury shootouts and all that problem. So because of that, they didn't want to pitch in a hand and have anything to do with Owens. So Owens went to some of the ranchers and the same thing. That none of them wanted, he was involved in all that stuff with the Tewksburys. So he finally finds a guy named Pete Bragdon. And Bragdon says, okay, I'll do it. And Bragdon recruits a guy named Owens to help him out. So the three of them go back to this pocket a day or so later, and the Mexicans are still there. When they get there, there's just a cooking camp. So they sit down and they kind of spread out a little and they just wait. Because they don't want to be kind of go in, take the cook, and get, you know, the other guys come into camp while they're... So they're sitting waiting, and then the others come in. They let them come into camp. They start unsaddling their horses and stuff, putting their gear down and stuff. They're going over to get something to eat, and they kind of go through a count and figure they have them all accounted for, all 12. And there's two versions to this. Owen says he called out, told them to surrender, put their hands up, but then one of the Mexican gang members grabbed his guns and fired at him, and then Owens opened fired, and then Bragdon and they all, Jacobs, open fire, and they shoot most everybody. Owens was known as a pretty crack shot, but 5 of them go to get away. Actually, it was 6. One gets shot off his horse. They thought they probably wounded the other 5, but they got on horses and got out. So there's 7 dead bodies. Owens goes down, looks around, says his main thing is, as sheriff, he's going to take these horses. He's going to push these horses and get them back to Concho. And Bragdon and Owen, or Jacobs, are sitting there like, okay. And he says, well, you guys can have the horses of the bandits. You can have anything you want here, their equipment, their tools, whatever else. So just bury the bodies, and then that'll be payment enough, which was probably a pretty good deal. So they're like, okay. And then Owens got the horses and immediately got them together and started pushing them out of there. So those two are sitting there. They look around and realize all the work that has to be done. Said, why don't we just get some help to do this and split the stuff with some other guys? So they get back to Flag. They tell everybody, hey, we got, this all went down. We can split the stuff. They took a couple of the horses and some stuff in. So they go back, get the remaining horses and gear and equipment, and bury the bodies. They bury the bodies in some different graves. I think 2 of the bodies they put in one grave, but they get the bodies buried, and they go around, gather up everything, and divvy everything up there. They did note that there was a couple picks and a shovel, and they had fresh dirt on it, but they didn't think nothing of it. They just got everything and left. Well, shortly after this, a sheriff down here in Phoenix, Sheriff Garfius, is down at a bar, and he hears that these Mexicans had rode into town, and he'd heard about some sort of shootout or something that went on with Owens. And he kind of was keeping an eye on them, and they kind of realized he was watching them, and they left the bar they were at. They went out in the street. Garfius follows them, and as soon as he gets out and starts walking down to see where they're going, what they're doing, they turn to go shoot him. Garfius, unfortunately for them, was a quick draw and a really good shot, and kills all 3 in the streets. So he has suspicions that this is part of this group he heard who came in town of these guys, these Mexican bandits. So he starts inquiring around and finds that a local guy has the other 2, which are in really bad shape. They've been shot. They call it blood poisoning. They're dying of their bullet wounds. He goes and visits them, and they talk to him. And they confess they're dying. Like, we're so sorry, please bury us, let our families know. But we feel really bad now, of course, of everything we did. He's listening to them and talking to them, and just before they die, they tell him, hey, well, what we were doing up there is, that was our last herd we were going to push into Mexico, and that group of the gang was going to split up after that, and we all had our shares. There was 12 people, and there was 12 shares, and we all went out and buried our shares around the camp before we were going to pick it up and then make our final run back down to Mexico. So Garfius goes, okay, this is pretty good news. So he sends a letter to Sheriff Perry Owens. Hey, there's a bunch of these guys say there's a bunch of stuff, buried up there and all. And Owens, who didn't spend 5 minutes there, goes, that's impossible. There's nothing there. These guys didn't have anything. They just, I got the herd of horses, that's all. So Garfius kind of spreads the word around, like, hey, there could be something to this. And the man Barth, who had had his horses stolen, heard about this. So he goes into Flag and talks to Barth goes into Flagstaff and talks to Bragdon and Jacobs. And they're both, I don't know, we got everything we saw there. We didn't see anything like that. And this point, one of the things comes out is where Owen said, we kind of sat there, I called out and all this. Jacobs and Bragdon say, Owens just got there. Once the men sat down to eat and were just sitting to eat, Owens killed the first two before anything happened. So he said they were like, he literally cold-bloodedly just shot them to reduce the odds and then just kept firing on them. And that was why they had such an advantage. Barth can't get either one of them to do anything because I guess Bragdon's wife is very, very ill, and both these men are kind of like not feeling like really up to wanting to go back down there and all this. So he leaves, and then Bragdon and Jacobs start talking and decide, you know what? One of us should go down there and look over this because those picks and shovels look like they might have buried in something. Well, Bragdon still can't leave, so he tells Jacobs, just go down and look around and tell me if there's anything, now that we know this, if there's something you see. So Jacobs goes down, spends a day or two there, and then under a pine tree sees where there was dirt that could have been disturbed. He digs, he finds saddlebags with over $5,000 in them. Comes back to town, tells Bragdon, they split the money, and they decide to keep this kind of to themselves, this spot. So over the next number of years, they continue to go out. Once Bragdon's wife, she actually does recover and is doing better, they go out and make several other trips. It's a number of years later, they make this trip once in a while, like for 4 or 5 days, and they look around and they dig in some spots. They find another set of saddlebags in another spot with 8,000 in it. And they're like, heck, man, not bad. They continue, they don't find anything else. Jacobs, I don't know, he passes away and nothing else is known, but Bragdon does take his son-in-laws, 3 of them, out and shows them the site and everything around it and all. And from what I've ever heard, I've never heard of anyone else recovering. So saying there was 12 gang members and 5 are dead, but they recovered 2, and you do your math, there should be 10 caches still out there of who knows whose is left where. Nothing's ever said again about Valenzuela. There's rumors he's dead, but then he does pop up in little things, but nothing as big as what he had been doing before. Probably steals some horses, does some of this and that. We don't ever know who Hidalgo is. They don't even know if it was a real person or if it was just something they added to the gang name, make it sound impressive or something. So that's the story. I've been up in this area. Now, the first time we went up, we pulled over, and I remember taking pictures of what on the maps is known as the Mexican Pocket. And I was looking at it and going, okay, I could see where they could run horses down in this area if there's a nice couple spots of water. I get it and all this, and you know how back then these guys would track these guys and find them in these canyons, and it seems like such a nightmare case scenario. But I took pictures and I kind of got interested, and I thought, man, I'll have to go down in there someday. But then I found, because of Bragdon and Jacobs, they later basically said it wasn't the Mexican Pocket that's on maps. It's east of there. There's another area known as the Mexican Pocket that's not labeled. And their sons knew it. I went back to that spot and realized it was even more difficult. Took a few pictures of the surrounding area, but because I didn't know anything immediate, didn't have anything circled, any general idea where to even start, I was like, well, where do you even begin with this? Be a cool thing to go out there with Frank, some metal detectors, and go check, get back in. But it would be a little bit of, it's not like you can just drive up, get out, and be in the Mexican Pocket. But there you go. I think it's a cool story because from what I can tell still, and I kind of followed it up to some degree of looking to see if anybody had recovered anything else. And I would think if they found the 2 caches, there's going to the other 10, there has to be some. Valenzuela or someone might have made it back in the area, but they're only going to know where each one's individual cache is. So the fact that 5 men died means, at the very least, there has to be 3 possibly left still there, if not more. So there you go, the story of the Mexican pocket. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's a pretty cool sounding name for a treasure story, much better than the others. And that's the second one we had in Flag. The other one was up north of the canyon area, but this is down south of Flagstaff. I'm sure there's still some stories out there. Do your research, pick out the names, and find the real people there, and go look a few of the newspaper stories and stuff and follow it up. The articles that I was able to read had pictures of Bragdon and Jacobs and a number of the different people involved in the story, including, I think there was a picture with a couple of the son-in-laws in Barth in it too. So seems like a really good story to kind of follow up on. So there you go. I hope everybody else enjoys a great rest of the week. We welcome Trevor home today. So Trevor's back in the fold, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. So Trevor's back temporarily, at least for 2 weeks or maybe a month before he's off again and his travels. And then we'll hear this summer about his travels to Spain and France and see what happens in Paris while Trevor's there. Hopefully nothing too risque. Okay. So that all said and being done, like I said, please subscribe. Hit the notification bells, comments. Don't worry about anything else. Just visit the website. And if you want to do anything, it doesn't help us, but it's cool just to kind of like, if you want a shirt, get a hat, get a coffee cup. We're going to follow up, kind of get some more stuff out there for all of you. All right. Remember the rendezvous this fall. We'll do something this summer, kind of explain it. It's the 20th anniversary of the rendezvous, so it'll be kind of a nice big deal for us. But other than that, just enjoy the week. It's getting close to summertime and the heat's coming in. So until the next time, always remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.